I've had this game lying around for some time now, and I figure I better use it, otherwise, I never will. Some of you have probably already seen it because it happens on one of my more recent streams. Not the last one, but maybe a time or two before that. We're, of course, playing the legendary tier BA Montana, Blue Archive Montana. Not badass Montana, even though it is. I think it's much more potent than the conventional Montana, and that mostly comes down to one factor, which is the reload time on these 12 16-inch guns. If I'm not entirely mistaken, we are able to achieve a 22-second reload time on this ship's 12 16-inch guns. That's in large part due to the Takanashi Hoshino commander, who, in addition to allowing us to have 6 instead of 5 heals, also comes with the Megalomania skill, which reduces the HP of the battleship. That's why we're at 91,480, but also reduces the reload time by, I think, 12.5% when fully maxed. And I think Hoshino has at least one other skill that buffs the reload time. Might be her base trait. Can't quite remember, but in any case, we have a reload time of 22 seconds on these main battery guns. And this battle will demonstrate to you that having that quick of a reload time with 12 16-inch guns is perhaps a little bit too potent. Now, we're initially pushing toward the flank near this Charlie cap, but the flank is currently occupied by one blue battleship and two blue cruisers. So I don't think we've made the decision yet, but we soon will. If we push into this area with this GK and his two cruiser buddies, what's going to happen? Well, there's some red ships over here toward this other side of the map. We can see a cruiser out there smoked up in the distance, and then we've got an Alaska and a Montana pushing up near this island. They are going to be fighting those 3 ships over there on the flank, and if we go in the same area as them, then both Alaska and Montana only have to worry about angling toward one side of the map. Instead, if we go into the cap, which seems safe at the moment, then we will have access at least to the broadside of Montana, who's far enough away from the island that we can lob shells over it and hit the broadside. And then if Alaska wants to push out, theoretically we'll also have his broadside. That's the thing to consider when choosing where to sail your battleship. You don't want it in the same grid square as another friendly battleship, or maybe even cruisers too. You want to put it somewhere where the enemy has to sail past your main guns in order to achieve some kind of goal. In this case, the goal would be pushing around that island and attempting to eliminate our teammates. If they want to try doing that, the teammates are beginning to reverse or kite away, at least the GK is, and the cruisers have backed off somewhat. So if these guys want to push out to try and finish them off, they are going to have to give a healthy amount of broadside to us in order to do it. It looks like enemy Montana still has not quite figured out that there's a threat on his broadside because he continues to give broadside to this area and takes 2 citadels for it. We're up to 68,000 damage done now. We've got perhaps a little bit of a problem with the enemy gearing inside of the cap, but he's being sort of countered by the friendly Shimakaze. Not fully, he's of course still floating, and the gearing is a much better gunboat than the Shima, so I don't think they can really go toe-to-toe with each other. But we do have a friendly cruiser pushing in from the middle of the map who can perhaps assist the Shimakaze, and if not, maybe we'll be able to get shots on the gearing. Now is when Montana decides he's going to push out. I think the Alaska is going to follow him. The plan for achieving broadside shots is not quite working out. The cruisers and the GK have retreated quite far. In fact, the GK is directly behind me right now, which is not ideal. Somebody takes out the friendly cruiser. Must be the battleship that is currently unspotted somewhere to the north. Who knows? In any case, these guys are pushing in. Regular Montana is on low HP, starting to take some shots from the friendly cruisers. Alaska's just pushing straight bow in, but what I'd like to do is eliminate this Montana before taking out the Alaska if possible. That salvo there takes him down to fairly low HP. Hopefully he can be finished off, by some of my teammates, but now we're caught in a little bit of a crossfire ourselves. We've got Schlieffen coming out around that corner there. He's got our broadside. Montana, Alaska are behind us, and there's an unspotted battleship somewhere in the distance. But not to worry, we've prepared for this kind of scenario. Note we were not bow tanking at any point that entire time. If we were, we would not be able to extricate ourselves from this terrible crossfire, but luckily, our bow is pointed into our spawn, and so we can just sail that way and try to move the rudder left and right to angle against the Schlieffen and the Alaska. Seems like Schlieffen's got some problems of his own to deal with, but we do want to get him off of our broadside. He's got bigger guns than the Alaska. Alaska's guns might actually be more dangerous than his, I don't know. But it's all moot. Alaska goes down to one of our teammates, so we'll just be able to finish off the Schlieffen here. That was a bit of a scary push on the part of the red team, but we've come out of it okay. Lost a little bit of HP in the process, but we still have 5 heals left to go, and these heals are pretty improved on the BA Montana, I think in comparison to the regular one. They might be the same, but I feel like they restore a little bit more HP. Schlieffen is down. We've got 2 fists acquired and 1 kill. Vermont was the ship, I think, that hit us pretty hard earlier. Makes sense, the Vermont salvos can be quite scary, although the ship itself is a little bit of a brick, as you might say. So now that we've kited away from danger, just a little bit, and the danger has been eliminated, now would be the time to push back in. A key concept to keep in mind if you too want to employ the tactics that are world renowned from the Xarkun School of Kiting. If you're going to kite away, it's got to be in a situation like that where you've got a Montana, an Alaska, a Schlieffen, and who knows what else shooting at you. And then, when they're eliminated, and you've got an advantage because you're 1 Montana, 1 cruiser, and potentially 1 destroyer versus a solitary Vermont, well, there's really no reason to kite away from the Vermont, especially if he's broadside. And he is to our position. Although he's staring straight at us, he's ready to shoot at us just as we are to shoot at him. But we've managed to tighten up the angle, and he mostly misses anyway. But we, of course, get a Citadel. 162,000 damage done now. I said we don't really need to kite away, but we are kiting away right now at this moment. I think the reason for that, I can't remember exactly my thought process while playing the game, but I think the reason for that is because we can continue to damage the Vermont as we push away. He's got torpedoes coming at his face, he's got some cruisers potentially shooting at him, and the rest of the enemy team, more or less, is on the Alpha side. Besides this Vermont, there's only 1 cruiser somewhere out in the distance, and I think it's a Minotaur. So if we get this Vermont off the board and we leave this side of the map, I don't think it's going to be in too much danger from 1 solitary Minotaur. We would need to counter the ships on the other side of the map. But then again, here's that Gearing. I think he's the one that we initially saw in this cap. He must have been forced out of it somehow, but he's returned just in time to prevent us from actually securing it. And now, the Gearing is something we have to consider. We can't really shoot at the Vermont. Gearing does get spotted because he decides to leave his smoke screen in sea detectability range, I suppose. Or he shot his guns and revealed himself. Not quite sure. In any case, we weren't paying as much attention to his presence as we should have been. I think those torpedoes were predictable and obvious, and we probably could have dodged them. But it's fine. We take a few of them. We're still floating. We can use a heal. And Gearing disappears, but we take the blind shot and manage to sink him. I feel like you should always take the blind shot when ships vanish like that. Good chance you can still hit them if you're aiming in the right place. And if we didn't sink that Gearing, things could, well, they could be a little bit more complicated. The Gearing might not be able to engage anybody with his guns because he was on such low HP. But he would be able to spot more efficiently than any of the other ships left, and of course the threat of torpedoes is always a thing. Enemy Ibuki takes a nasty Citadel from the BA Montana. He's well on his way back to port, and once he goes down, we're going to end up with a 5v3 scenario. There on the other side of the map, we can see the enemy Minotaur, which was hanging around on the map border. appear and immediately disappear. The two cruisers over there are more than capable of taking him out, which leads me to believe it was the correct choice to start sailing away from this flank and head over here. At this point, I think the game is probably more or less wrapped up. Theoretically, the enemy team could still win, but it seems unlikely. So now is the time to farm damage. Not great with 3 overpens on the Schroeder, but if we can get some more shots on this Ibuki as he turns away, we may be able to secure ourselves a 3rd kill in this match. Of course, the island blocks half of our salvo, but one half is probably all we need to sink that IJN cruiser. Unless we miss, which we did. Fair enough. He's going to go back to port soon enough, and that's just going to leave Borgonia and Schroeder. Borgonia is going to be the bigger threat to us. He's got smaller guns than we do, but they're 15-inch, and they are French, so they've got that magic bullet quality. We certainly don't want to be giving him broadside. Schroeder, on the other hand, I feel like his secondaries are the bigger threat than his main battery guns. Not that they're terrible or anything, but there's, I think, only 8 of them, if I'm not mistaken. And they don't have the best accuracy known to man. There's a salvo. Does it even damage us? No, it seems like it completely misses. See what I'm saying there? Anyway, we get the high caliber medal at some point that I missed, and that shot against the Schroeder nets us the Confederate. Schroeder apparently is under the impression that turtleback armor on a cruiser makes you invincible, but BA Montana is here to tell you that that is not the case. We're able to access that citadel very easily, along with 5 over-penetrations, and 262,000 damage done now. We're crossfired, though, by the Schroeder, the Ibuki, who is still alive, and, well, I guess we're bow tanking the Borgonia, but that doesn't really matter if he's going to be shooting HE at us. So maybe it's time to get him off the board. I'm not quite as concerned about giving broadside to the Schroeder as I am now with getting the Borgonia sunk. His fires could end us after a little while, and we don't want to do that. We're at 270,000 damage, and we want to go for the 300,000 damage mark at this point. Plus, I don't think there's any way these guys are going to win. The Borgonia is on such low health. And Schroeder, well, he continues to give broadside. Once again, turtleback armor does not make you invincible. There he goes with another citadel, and that's 295,000 damage done with just over 2 minutes left to go in the game. The only sad part is that the Borgonia over here is going to be torpedoed to death by the Shimakaze, so we're unable to secure any more damage. But we do end the battle with just south of 300,000, 295,766, and nearly 4,000 base XP in the BA Montana. The reload time on this thing may just be a little bit broken, but that being said, it's obviously really fun to play. And I hope you enjoyed this high damage match. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.